Mr. Miller's Art Room. Today we have a very special project brought to you in conjunction with our very special librarian, Miss Adame. We are going to be creating a work of art that shows appreciation and love for ourselves and our community. But before we start talking about the actual work of art, let's talk about some of the concepts and ideas behind it. The first concept that we're going to have to think about is something called tracing. Tracing is when we utilize shapes or objects to draw around and create a form of that object on a piece of paper or canvas. You can utilize pre-made shapes like this star shape or even objects like a can in order to create tracing. You can use any drawing tool in order to create a tracing. I'm going to utilize the Sharpie because it shows very well on the camera. It could be a pencil, a crayon, oil pastel, or even, if you're careful enough, a paintbrush. We also need some kind of object. I'm going to utilize this star shape. Now it's going to require two hands. One hand is going to hold the object down. We don't want the object to move. The other hand is going to utilize the drawing tool. Now the thing about this is when I say drawing around, I don't mean drawing around. I mean that you're going to utilize the drawing tool and rest and lean on the shape, the form, and use that as a guide for where the lines will go. Now, when you come back around here, you may need to change your wrist or your position so that the drawing point can actually touch the object. There's a certain point where you won't be able to see the object, so you're just going to have to trust that it's there. No worries, because if you miss, you can always put the object back down in the same place and then retrace to make sure that you get a line. As I remove it, you'll see that I have a copy of this shape on the paper. You can even do it with an object with the same rules, holding the object down so it does not move. Take your drawing tool, find a space around it, lean your drawing tool on the object so that you feel the object as you draw. You may need to change a couple of directions in order to make sure that you get the full shape, and then voila. The next concept we got to think about are something called symbols. Symbols are icons or very simple pictures that allow us to understand an object or an idea. A lot of things can be symbols, and I'll show you a couple examples. This right here is the symbol for a star. Now, this isn't actually a star, but it is in the same form and shape as what we recognize as a star shape. This happens to be the symbol for a flower. This kind of symbol is what's known as an emoji. Emojis are symbols of emotions. Today, we are going to be utilizing a large piece of art paper, a pencil, and various other tools in order to create a work of art that is as representative of you as it is old in our history. We're going to be utilizing our own forearm and hand to create a tracing that will remain on the paper, and then we're going to decorate that with patterns, colors, and symbols, things that represent stuff we care about and things that we love about ourselves and our community. People have been doing this for thousands of years to put their mark on their communities and show that they were there. Thousands of years ago, people would descend into caves and utilize basic paints and pigments, and then put their hand tracings on the wall. These are hand tracings from people that lived thousands and thousands of years ago. They left their mark in their communities. We are going to do something very similar. Step one is that we're going to utilize our forearm and hand as a way of tracing. If you have a long sleeve like I do, what you're going to want to do is pull your sleeve up. I'm also going to take off my wedding ring right here, placing our hand onto the paper. We don't have to have our hand pushing down because our hand is the shape. We're going to utilize a pencil in this particular case. And like I said with tracing, place the pencil and press it against our hand and our forearm because that's what's going to give us the shape that we need. Then we're going to use our hand and our forearm as the guide. I need to make sure that my pencil presses. Now, on areas like your fingers right here, you may need to go a little bit more gently. I'm utilizing my pencil right up against the line, and then I may need to press down with my fingers as I come across. If your tracing isn't exactly perfect, that's not a problem, because remember, this is not perfect class, this is art class. We're going to come back around, and then when we come all the way back down to the other side, you'll see that we have a perfect tracing of our hand. In terms of decorating this hand now, we can utilize a variety of different materials, such as crayons, oil pastels, markers, color pencils, or even watercolor paint. I will try to use a variety of these. You can just stick with one. I wanted to utilize a variety so you can see how I might utilize them on this particular work of art. I would like everybody to consider utilizing patterns of colors and shapes, also symbols, which are very basic drawings of things that you love about yourself or your community. Most of my colors and patterns are going to go inside of this hand shape because after this is done, we're actually going to follow these lines and cut out the shape of our hand and forearm. I'm going to start with crayons, and I'm going to put a primary color scheme on the fingers. I finished the primary color pattern scheme on the fingers, and that brought me to a new idea. What if I utilized the blue crayon to actually create a frame around the palm of the hand? I drew out the form real quick, then I colored it in. Now I need to think about some of the symbols that show things about me and what I love. And one of the things I love is the school I work at. As you can see here, I drew a symbol of a lion, which is Rory, our school mascot. This just so happens to be an excellent opportunity to show off the watercolor situation. Whenever you're going to be painting with watercolors, one of the best things that you can do is actually draw your shapes utilizing crayons. Crayons are made of wax, which means that they resist water. So even if I paint on top of Rory here with the watercolor, you'll still be able to see the lines, and it makes it easier for me to understand where I should place paint. First, get the brush wet. Now I'm going to choose my color, which is going to start off as yellow, but the cool thing about watercolor is that you can blend some of the colors in to make the colors more rich and complex. I painted Rory with the color yellow. I'm going to leave that alone and move to another spot until that dries up a little bit. Now I'm going to show you some use of markers. One of my favorite things about living in the Pacific Northwest are mountains and trees. So I'm going to draw a small symbol in the wrist area with mountains and trees. I start off with the conifers. I color in the leaves. I add in a small lake, maybe some grass on the ground, some distant mountains. I didn't have the color brown, so I utilized a little layer of green on top of the orange to create some brownish color. Now I'm going to do a sort of sunrise, sunset color scheme in the sky. Start with yellow, go to orange, then some red, and polish it off with some purple. We're going to go back to the lion. I'm going to rinse my brush out, and then I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of orange and a little bit of brown for some visual contrast. I did the orange around the mane. Now I'm going to go for the brown, but remember, always wash your brush before you go to the next color. I'm doing a little bit of brown around the edges of some of these shapes, like the nose and the muzzle of the lion, to give it the impression of a little bit of shadow or shading. One of the things that I love and appreciate about myself and my life is that I'm an artist. This is a great opportunity to show you how I utilize color pencils, a symbol of a paintbrush. Drawing a stick, then the fuller, the bristles. That's the symbol of a paintbrush. It's not a realistic looking one, but we're not looking for realism. Next will be the symbol of a palette. And then right here in this divot would usually be a hole for your thumb, and then your colors would go around. One of the benefits of utilizing color pencils is that you can be very exact with where you place the color, and so you can stay well within the shape lines. Unlike markers, crayons, or watercolor, which can be a little bit chunky to use. Now that I'm almost done, I need to start thinking about where I'm going to write my name, and I'm going to actually outline very gently an area where my name will go. This area right here, I'll just utilize my eraser and erase some of these lines that I don't need. Now I'm going to show you what I do with the oil pastels. I want to put some colors down here, and I think that I'm going to utilize the principle of overlapping colors and shapes, and because I'm an artist and I utilize all the colors, I'm going to make a rainbow pattern behind the palette. As you can see here, I started with red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple. Finally, for my name, I'm just going to utilize my last name, But I don't want to just keep it as lines. I want to turn them into a sort of shape. So utilizing the letters that I already drew, I just draw around them and then connect them together, creating a sort of, well, what people call a bubble letter. Though it's not a bubble, it's more angular than that. This is just one way to do it. There's many other ways to create letters as shapes. Since we started with crayon, I'm going to end with crayon. Now that my name is all complete and I've decorated, I'm going to utilize a set of scissors and cut around the edge of this whole picture. What I'm going to do is start by holding the paper in one hand, opening it up nice and wide, aiming the inside edge of my scissors in here, and I'm going to slowly and carefully trim this out. For the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and just get this done. And done. We've got a beautifully decorated, very personal work of art that shows our own hand and has symbols of things that we love about ourselves and our communities. As soon as you're done, you want to make sure that this is set aside, and teachers, if you would like to, go ahead and turn this into Mr. Miller or Miss Adame, and thank you all very much. For Miss Adame and I, we say good day.
We said good day.